This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusoya. Welcome to the show. My guest today brings dry northern humor to financial advice and somehow manages to make money genuinely entertaining. I think we can call him a prolific content creator.
Wow.
and indeed social media influencer and financial advisor. I'm talking about none other than Dempsey, the money man.
That's the one. Hello.
Welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for making the trip. I've watched your rise on social media, your videos on LinkedIn. Tell me, how did you get into this wonderful business of financial advice?
I never really wanted to.
None of us did.
No, like it's a common theme for a lot of people. I had someone else say the other day, actually, they would love it if people wanted to get into the industry rather than fall into it. But I fell into it. My dad was an IFA back in Newcastle. My mum worked in a bank.
You were born into it.
Potentially. But I used to go to my dad's office and it was magnolia walls, lots of filing cabinets, stank of coffee, someone upstairs smoking. I'm like, what? Not for me, thanks. But outside of the office, he had a great time. Went into sales after university and got a role working for City Financial at the time, which was in the subprime loan market. Started to realise I had a bit of an interest, enjoyed it, then did mortgage qualifications, worked through the banks, and then eventually got to where I am now, some nearly 20 years later. It's been a real roller coaster of a ride and up and down. And I fell out of love with financial services on a couple of occasions through that as well, because it felt like I was a square peg in a round hole until I really found my feet doing what I'm doing now.
Why is that? When you say square peg in a round hole, why is that? Is it, the industry being, what is it that made it feel that way?
I think a lot of it was the standard of the advice. I think like most of the time I spent it in the restricted space.
Right.
So in the bank assurance, don't get me wrong, it was an incredible grounding for where I am now. And I loved most of my time in that space, but just felt like I was giving advice with one arm tied behind my back because it was restricted. It was very controlled. There wasn't a lot of freedom or interpretation into how that advice was given. And for me, towards the end of that bank assurance, I felt like there was one more roll of the dice, and it was to get out of bank assurance and see what the advice landscape is like outside, and took the jump and then fell out of love with it again once I'd made that, and then realized actually I need to be independent. I need to have IFA as the last kind of roll of the dice. And since then, having that independence, which has been a real steep learning curve, I felt like I've really found my feet and found my voice, and I can do things the way that I want and the way that I think adds value to clients.
So when did you go independent?
About 4 years. We've just gone into our fourth year.
Incredible.
And it was a really steep learning curve. It was a baptism of fire from the start, because you've gone from, and the way I like to describe it to people is it's a bit like going into a supermarket. You can only buy from the tin section.
Yeah.
And then someone just opens the rest of the supermarket up and you've got all of these options that you can offer to clients. And it was really tough to get my head around all these different platforms, all these different investment solutions, and what do I use? And is it active? Is it passive? Is it DFM? Everything that came with that, as well as trying to do the day job, run the business, 4 kids and 2 dogs and everything else that comes with it as well. But for me, it was absolutely the right move.
Right. So we'll come back to all the social media stuff in a sec. But describe the business to me as it is today in terms of you, the type of clients that you serve. What does give us a picture of the business today?
So we've it's just me, little office at the bottom of the garden. My other half does a lot of the admin, social media side of things. So there's 2 of us, plus my stepson helps a bit. So like call it 2.5 people. We originally started off with a view of we want to help as many people as possible. But what I've started to realize is in order to do that, we need to look after ourselves first, look after the family first, make sure we're financially okay. And I can then do that afterwards. So it's evolved from I want to help everybody and anybody to the place that we're about to take that next evolution of. Typical case size around about 200K is the clients that I look after, but it's a very different approach. I use behavioral coaching, full financial planning, then the advice, which I think adds a massive value to clients. We're currently ticking along at about 15 million under management, which has been a real labor of love. And I'd probably say I'm a little bit frustrated it's not bigger. I think these last 12 months have been a challenge, but part of that, like what I said off screen, was that we were trying to implement systems and automation and get that built before we start getting bigger, and then it becomes really stressful and difficult to manage.
Yeah.
So we've almost gone 2 steps ahead without the income and the revenue coming in to support that, to then be able to go much quicker. Our goal for next year will be to, over the next 18 months, to get another 10 million under management. It's a big ask, but I think I found the way to do it. I think I've got the systems in place to be able to do that. And it's about tapping into that and being smarter with the time that we've got. Alongside that, there's the second brand, which is then the social media side, which will be things like podcasts and social media stuff. And that's an incredible space to be part of as well. Very collaborative, and there's some credible people operate in that space. It's a really interesting to have a foot in both camps.
Cool. So with the financial advice side of things, are the clients typically, younger, working age clients, or do they tilt towards the typical retiree type of client? I ask because when we get to the social media part, but when I follow your social media stuff, it's geared towards that's my impression. You correct me. The younger accumulator, say, versus, let's say, retirees. Is that the picture? Is that the typical client? What is the typical client? Is the question?
It's really broad,
right? Interesting.
And I think part of that's probably been a bit of a challenge. I've resisted niching down in financial services, which is what a lot of people tell you to do.
Yeah,
I've resisted it because of that. I didn't want to go too narrow because I wanted to help as many people as possible.
Yeah.
But like the flip side of that is, now I've got the 3 social media channels. On one of them now, I'm going to go very narrow, which is where I'm going to see the growth. So to answer your question, it's a real broad mix because of how I approach it and what I do. So I've got real high earners under the age of 30. I've got real high earners over the age of 60. And it's a real broad mix right across. And then obviously you've got their kids and potentially grandkids involved in it as well. It's a real mix of clients.
Okay, so let's talk about social media. How did you get into it? Take me back to the story of your social media, the content creation. How did that come by?
So I started when I was at St. James's Place a long time ago.
Okay.
I was fortunate.
They let you do social media.
They did, yes. So it was a long time ago in a principal partner practice at the time. Very good practice, great team. That we, one of the directors of the business ran a publishing company. He started getting clients from LinkedIn, came in, taught us all about LinkedIn, delivered a real in-depth program. The program didn't quite hit the mark, but it opened my eyes to the potential of LinkedIn. There was 5 of us on the program. Eventually it kind of died to death. I then found somebody else who was doing this effectively on LinkedIn, reached out to them, had some training from them. That was okay. Kind of put it onto the kind of the back burner. And then over lockdown, I was employed by Quilter at the time. Over lockdown, we were, as everybody probably thought, it's only going to be a few weeks. My manager and the team above were really good. Said, just don't worry about getting business, like look after your family. And then it started going on. And I kind of thought, look, I've been in financial services long enough that this is probably only going to end in redundancy. So started really spending some time on LinkedIn during the day rather than drinking gin and tonics at 11 o'clock in the garden, and found a trainer and just really tapped into LinkedIn. And I'm under no illusion at the time that a lot of that was timing, because all of a sudden everybody's faced with their own mortality. Everybody's sat at home thinking about wills, thinking about their finances, thinking about investing, pensions, all that kind of thing. And I just jumped into it with both feet and just found a trainer. I really resisted what she was telling me to do. And at the start of our very first conversation, she said, I'm not going to teach you how to get leads. I'm going to teach you how to build a personal brand. And from a guy who works with numbers and is very logical in the way that he approaches stuff, for me, that just felt like nonsense. And I pushed back and I'm like, I don't want to build a personal brand. I want leads. I want to be able to bring stuff in. And then resisted for weeks and weeks. She just pushed me, said, just start putting some content out. Put a little bit of content out. And then it was put a little bit more out. And then you just gradually, the wheel started turning. It really started to turn. And I got incredibly busy over lockdown. My diary was full like 4 weeks in advance. Couldn't get appointments in. And it really took off. And then I've just kept the momentum up since then.
That's incredible. So you're at the stage now where you're now having brands, approach you to do content for them.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
So it's branded like user generated content. So I mean, if you kind of use Instagram or TikTok, you'll see people talk about like products, or they'll maybe have a break in a hotel, and it'll be a branded kind of user generated content. Financial brands are at the point now where they're starting to explore this space. It's in its infancy, but I think it's an incredible area of growth because a lot of the big brands are starting to really look at this space and they want to work with people with credibility. They want somebody who's already got an established following, who understands social media, and it's opened up some incredible doors and opportunities. And people that I used to look up to on social media and follow, I can be in the room with them and feel like I can hold my own with them.
Right.
And these are people that, I mean, we all know the big names in this space, like that have got millions and millions of followers, and I'll consider them to be colleagues now because it's incredible. It's been an incredible ride, great opportunity, and it's only getting bigger.
So I saw you done this thing for Pension B, you've done for Saxo, is that?
Yeah.
So the brands, I assume they have some sort of an agency in the middle who then find you. How does it work? How do they find you?
Yeah. I've had some come direct.
All right.
Just message through kind of the social media channels. But a lot of the time through an agency. An agency will go and find the client, then they'll go and find the creators to work with, which just takes a lot of the donkey work away from me trying to kind of pitch and all that stuff. I'll let them kind of do their stuff. They'll go and find the clients, and then they'll get a room of creators together with the brands, and they'll pick the creators that they want to work with. And I've been picked a few times because I'm one of the only people in that space who's still regulated. There's a few of us. There's not huge numbers of us, but that adds a great amount of credibility rather than having millions of followers, because I can talk about the technical stuff and I can talk about that with conviction and confidence.
And so when you say that, you're thinking of this as kind of a separate, business, let's say, you're not doing this, the social media stuff, at least the influencer part of it. You're not doing it necessarily or at all to get client for the financial planning business. You're just doing that for the revenue that comes as a result of that. Is that how you're thinking about it?
Yeah, like now it is.
Right.
That wasn't the case when I started.
Okay, so you started initially to find clients, build it, right? Interesting.
Absolutely. LinkedIn was the main platform where it really started to turn. Right. But I just felt a little bit overexposed, because if something happened with LinkedIn for any reason, that's my following gone, my lead source gone. So I then looked at TikTok, then looked at Instagram, started working them, very different audience, very different demographic, very different style of content. And then the brands came directly through those other channels with a much smaller following.
Interesting.
But what it's made me realize is I split the brand into two then. So there's two parts to the two separate businesses completely. There's the money man brand, and then there's the regulated side of things.
Okay.
And the regulated side of things will get the LinkedIn kind of focus over the next few months. And the non-regulated business will be the TikTok and the Instagram side of things. It's been interesting. It's been a challenge. But what I certainly realize is if you're going to create content, get as much data and analytics behind this stuff as you can very quickly. So we went hell for leather at the start, and TikTok and Instagram, there was a time when we were posting 3-4 times a day, every single day.
Wow.
Plus maybe 3 or 4 stories a day. And it was relentless. But what we've then built up as a picture of analytics data, what works, what doesn't, where my target audience is. And that's been invaluable, because now we've got a bit of breathing space to be able to say LinkedIn will be for the regulated side, but this other space, we can tap into certain demographics with certain kinds of content, and I know it'll work. And we just tested a few bits in this last week just to see if we were right. And those kind of posts have done really, really well.
Interestingly, I may be showing my age here, but I am not on TikTok.
Right.
And I am hardly ever on Instagram. Maybe I will look at Instagram. I'm thinking maybe once in 2 months or once in a month. So I'm rarely ever there. So, but it's interesting that I saw the Saxo thing. I saw that on LinkedIn. And so I've seen several of your videos. I like the way you do it. You for instance, when you do two different guys, same guy. You're the same guy. And you would do one who's paying, spending a lot of money on a car, let's say, and the others investing, and you show the difference. Just really, really good. So for the first time, I think it was this week or last week, I saw the Saxo.
Yeah, this week.
This week. And I'm thinking, I've never seen that before. So that was that is the influencer stuff, and that's one of the ones that you say will be going forward, will be on Instagram, and what's the other one, on TikTok.
Yeah,
and you would just do what you did previously on the LinkedIn side of things.
Yeah, probably. That's what I'm thinking, because ultimately for me, like the plan for us as a family is to get funds under management, to really drive efficiencies within the business, use technology, AI, and everything that's available to us over the next few years to really tighten up processes and make that a business that feels really personal for clients, delivers an exceptional level of service, and adds significant value to them. And I think the boundaries have almost blurred a little bit by doing it across all three channels. And I feel like I need to separate them out again and make a clear distinction. It'll probably be a bit of a rebrand at some point as well, change the name of the business. Don't know what that's going to be yet. But the regulated business is ultimately where that's going to feed my financial plan for the rest of my life, because that's where I add the value to those clients. And then I've got a decision to make on, if I get to that level that I want to with the funds under management, what next? And I really struggle with that as to what that next step is, because there's so many options available to you, and there are opportunities constantly coming up. Like, it's a shrinking market. Advisors are leaving all the time. Opportunities to buy clients bank. There's opportunities to give advice in a different space, in a different way. Hence why we're talking today, because of what you guys do. And I don't quite have the clarity on what that end part looks like yet. But at the same time, I don't need that clarity yet.
Yeah.
I've just given myself a bit of space. Like last year when I qualified as a coach, it was give yourself some breathing space, and it will naturally come, rather than trying to force it and maybe make the wrong decision. Just let it evolve and see where we get to. And I think I'll be really clear on that by the end of next year and what that next step is.
I want to explore this social media, the influencer approach. Did you get any sort of pushback from, frankly, anyone on the regulator, I don't know, the network, let's say, or other financial advisors who might look at this and think, because we have this preconception in the profession that, this is financial advice, it must be serious, this is serious business. I imagine you would have regulatory or compliancy implication for, talking about pensions on TikTok.
Yeah.
Whereas you have unregulated people who are talking lots of nonsense on social media. Have you had any pushback from, frankly, anyone around this?
A lot. So when I first started, my biggest critics were financial advisors. I would regularly get financial advisors tear into my post, tell me the information was correct, tell me I shouldn't be doing this, what's my FCA registration number? Seriously, I'm going to report you to the FCA. Nothing ever came of any of it, because I was really, really careful from the start what I did, lent into my compliance team as part of my network, and anybody that wants to do social media in a regulated space has got to do that unless you're directly authorized. That's then your responsibility to make sure I'm safe. Because what I don't want to happen is me to put content out there for regulator or somebody else to then say, you can't say that, can't do that, because that can be very, very difficult. So really lent into financial promotions, made sure everything was approved, everything was signed off, and used that content. But even then, you'd still get people that would tear into you and just want to tell you that you're rubbish and you shouldn't be a financial advisor and that's terrible advice. That's this, that's that, the other. Like when you first get started, you've got to have a thick skin for this stuff.
I mean, I'm still slightly mortified by that because I have seen a lot of your videos and content. Frankly, I struggle. I haven't seen anything remotely controversial and nothing that points to a specific product. Even with, Saxo and Pension B, okay, that's naming a provider's name.
Yeah.
But you're just talking about what they do. So I don't get why you would, I don't get the point of the vitriol, if you can call it that.
I don't, but I can tell the demographic when the comment comes in. I don't even need to look at the picture of who that is because actually I'll be really black and white with it. It's the male, pale and stale crowd in this industry because these are guys that have been in the industry for a very long time and don't like change, are resistant to change, and anybody doing something differently stands out. But now I'm 4 years into this. Some of those guys are starting their social media careers and starting to write in social media, but I'm already 4 years ahead. So for me, I was on the right track in the first place. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't outrageous stuff. It wasn't promising ridiculous returns. It was safe. It was well crafted. It was signed off by compliance and it made sure that I was delivering the right message for the people that watch it.
So is this a path that you will recommend to anyone looking to build, let's say the priority is build a financial planning business? Is this a path that you recommend to anyone thinking about that?
Yes, but it's not for everybody because it can be a slow burn. Like everybody seems to have the view that you need to have millions of views, hundreds of thousands of followers.
That's what I would have thought, that you need thousands of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers for it to be meaningful.
You don't. And the example, if I had to start again and start another channel again, I would do it very differently.
Right.
And I think the way that I would do it would be to grow, say, a LinkedIn account with 1,000 of my ideal client as the audience, post content that relates to them, DM and add value to those people consistently on a consistent basis. You've got 1,000 people in that audience. How many clients do you think you can realistically take on as an individual? Maybe 100, 150 deliver an exceptional level of service. If you get 150 of those people as a client over a 5-year period, you can close your book and you're done. And there'll be advisors out there doing that just go under the radar. That are just talking to the ideal client. That's the way I would do it again. And there's an incredible opportunity for anybody who's starting to be able to do that and do it very, very well.
And so you would, if you did it again, you would do it exclusively on LinkedIn and not bother with the other channels?
I'd pick one platform to start with.
Yeah, okay.
I think if you try to go all 3, 4, whatever it might be, and you try to be all things to all men, you're going to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. If you can get really deep into one platform, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, or LinkedIn, and nail it, you probably won't need to do anything else. You might want to, but you don't have to.
What about YouTube? James Shackle, I don't know if you know
I know
him.
James Shackle.
This guy, he creates such great content on LinkedIn. And, he was talking to our team a while back. The quality of the clients actually incredible. I think in his case, the client, the leads that come through, the average asset is something like over £500,000.
Yeah.
So for me personally, and maybe I am one of those old guys that you're talking about, which is these are channels that I will never have thought that will bring, high quality clients in the way you or James are talking about them. Would you think about YouTube as a potential path? Or?
Oh, like 100%.
No. Okay.
For me, if I don't get the assets under management that I want over the next kind of 18 months, and even if I do, like YouTube's on that list, But YouTube is almost the big boys version of all these other social media channels.
Why'd you say that?
Because it's got to be really well crafted.
Right,
It's got to be really polished. It's got to look great because you've got some really big hitters in that space. The James Shack, the Pete Matthews, they make incredible content.
Yeah.
And it's detail focused. It's not try and catch someone's attention in the first 3 seconds and then deliver 30 seconds of value. It's going layers and layers underneath that, talking about financial planning, talking about tax, talking about investment returns, everything that we do on a day-to-day basis with clients, but you can do it in detail. What these guys do incredibly well is deliver that value consistently, but keep the viewer engaged. And that's a really, really hard skill to have in a 10-minute video. And it needs to be well crafted, well scripted, well designed, great thumbnails, published at the right time, analytics around that to analyze and look at when's the peak time to post this, how's that video done, what's this video done, and it's that constant level of analytics. Now these guys now have probably got great teams that already do that. I know a couple of other regulated advisors that want to get into that space. Me too, but there's 101 other things on the list before I probably get to that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And do you think being regulated is a hindrance or help when you're thinking about, these platforms, especially the TikToks and the Instas? Is being regulated a strength or a weakness if you can manage to make it fun and engaging?
Yeah. It depends on what your compliance team and either the network or the business that you operate under, the way they view it. You've got to stay compliant. You've got to make sure you comply with regulations that are set in stone by the FCA. But that doesn't mean you can't have fun with it.
Yeah.
Keep yourself safe, number one. Absolutely, because you can get in a whole world of trouble if you don't. That can mean that maybe you're putting out content that creators that aren't regulated can do that you can't.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing because you've got that credibility of the qualification in a business that sits behind that. You've got to keep compliance on site.
Yeah, and you've proven that it can be done. I mean, Pete Matthew has, I don't know, must be 1,000 plus, video podcast out there. James Shackles so it can be done. Whether or not it gives you more credibility to the audience, I don't know.
I think it depends what people are looking for.
Yeah,
because actually, if you think about what we do at a very fundamental level, it's incredibly complicated. To sit down with an individual and ask them to think about their whole life in an hour and a half time frame, money, tax, and everything else that comes with that is really complicated and difficult to do. Try and condense that into a 1-minute TikTok or a 30-second, that's very hard. But at the same time, to get that into an 8-minute video, 8 minutes doesn't feel like a long time. But if you're talking about a really technical subject and you've got to try and edit that down to capture someone's attention, it's hard. It's very difficult to do. But like I said, those guys do it incredibly well, and fair play to them. They've used that as a tool to build their regulated financial businesses. And they're great guys as well. They're breaking the mold of what financial advisors are because of how the approach they take. Like for me, I look up to both of them. I had conversations with Pete at a conference last year, and he's a great guy. Yeah. He's been on here as well, hasn't he?
He's been more than once.
Yeah.
This has been really good. Thank you, Ian. Just looking back, I want to try and wrap this up. Just looking back over your career, but over the last 4 years since you went, independent, set up your own firm, so become a social media guru star in the process. Just looking back, what has been some of the most profound period or lessons for you during that time?
I think the big one was that a restricted proposition wasn't for me. It was too controlling. It was too simplified to be able to give the service and the standard of advice that I wanted to give to clients. That was a real turning point, but it was a steep learning curve to get to where I wanted. It was then after that realizing there are levels to financial advice. There are poor financial advisors. There are incredible financial advisors, and the very big scale in between. And I wanted to be at the top end. And I really felt like it wasn't necessarily the technical side that made me a better advisor. It was investing in the skills of coaching, planning, the psychological element around money and how that affects clients. That made a big difference to me. And that was an incredible turning point because I felt like until I really delved into that, something was missing. And it really made a difference. Like, opened like doors and conversations with clients that are just like, you're incredibly privileged to be a part of. When you can open that door for a client that had some really significant blocks or resistance for a long time, and you can help them through that.
Well, what did you find most difficult about this? You know, like striking out 4 years ago, as you said, a wife, 4 kids, 2 dogs. You have to put food on the table. You're starting from ground zero. What did you find most difficult about actually getting going?
It was the whole piece. Like, at that point, I'd been a financial advisor for 15 years.
Yeah.
So in my head, it was like, I'm just doing exactly the same thing. But on day one, I felt crushed. I can remember it now, like vividly, like just sat at my desk, opened the laptop, and didn't know what to do. What am I going to do next? Because I need to be a marketer. I need to be someone who looks after the accounts.
Yeah.
I need to be the HR department. I need to do all the fundraising. All of this stuff just crushed me. And I actually shut the laptop and had to go out for a walk and try and clear my head. And then after that, I was just driven by fear, like real tangible fear that if I don't write enough business by the end of this month, I'm not going to be able to put the lights on. And it was brutal, those first 3 months. But inside of me, and I had an epiphany at the end of it. I had a financial figure in my head of where I always wanted to get to and the numbers that I wanted to make. And within 3 months of going out self-employed, because of how I'd worked on LinkedIn and just driven by fear, I was working 15 hours a day. I was working 7 days a week. It was non-stop. But those 3 months paid off. And I had consecutively the best 3 months I've ever had in financial services. I've only beaten one of those months in year 3 again. So it took a long time to get back to that level. But went out with one of my mates, had a game of golf on the Friday, came back, sat at home and broke down because I just felt like all of this time I'd built up my career to get to this number, which was, I want to be in a position where I earn 120K a year. That's the figure that I want to get to. And I got there within the 3 months, and it would be consistently at that level would have got me there. And it didn't feel any different.
Yeah.
Like, it was empty. And it was a real challenge for me to figure out what I wanted. And at that point, it was then actually, I want to build a business that helps people. But I almost went too far the other way. And that's where I've managed to pull it all back and find that happy medium in the middle.
Balance.
Yeah.
I mean, we do, for anyone going on an entrepreneurial journey, you do look back and you would not wish those 3 months on your worst enemy. But you probably wouldn't be here today if it weren't for those insane 3 months. Yeah. So it's,
And sometimes I like genuinely, I look back at it and I think, I want to tap into that work ethic again.
Where is that drive again? The hunger.
You can't get that back because that fear is not there.
Yeah.
You can work at that level again. Yeah, absolutely. Of course you can. And there's times when we do that. Like yesterday was a really late night for me working, but like it wasn't through fear. It was from drive about what I can see next, which is a very different motivator than that fear of I can't pay the bills at the end of this month.
Yeah. What advice would you give to anyone starting out their own firm, their own advisory business?
Yeah.
If there's one recommendation that you would give to them, one thing they should do and one thing they should absolutely not do, what would it be?
Plan it as far in advance as you can and speak to people that have done it, people that are doing it, people that have maybe failed doing it, and don't just limit that to people in the profession. Talk to marketing consultants, talk to accountants, talking to other businesses about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess the one thing that I would say not to do is wait until you're ready, because you're never going to be ready.
I like that.
Never going to be ready for it. I was pushed, like my goal was to be September, and I was made redundant, and it happened in May. So I wasn't prepared, but I had to make up for lost time and just get on with it.
Incredible stuff. Ian Dempsey, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for coming on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market-leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.